My name is Prachi. Polar bears have black skin and transparent fur that only looks white because of an optical illusion that reflects light. And this is my April check-in. You know, I think I want a glossy lip, so just a second. I'm glossy. I just realized that reference makes absolutely no sense unless you've heard the song Bossy by Kelis of My Milkshake Brings All the Boys to the Yard fame. Wait a second, I'm sick and I just used a lip gloss. If I'm sick and then I use a lip gloss, can I technically still use that lip gloss again? I mean, on the one hand, like the only germs on there are the ones from my own illness, which I'm assuming that my body already has an immunity to, but I'm not an immunologist, so I don't know if that's legit or not. Did I just ruin this lip gloss forever? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, can I still use this lip gloss? If anyone knows, please tell me. I guess that's as good a segue into any to let you guys know that I am currently ill and my voice is going and I'm kind of congested, so if I sound really weird or my voice gives out in the middle, that's kind of what happened. However, I did want to just film this and get it out because we're well into May now. So we are just gonna have to deal with me sounding potentially raspy. Having given that little disclaimer, let's get it. So April was a really big month for me. I know for a lot of people who live in the US, May is traditionally the month of final exams. However, in Canada, classes usually end within the first week of April, and April ends up becoming the month of exams. At the very least, that's the way that it works in Ontario, which is where I go to school. And those of you who've kind of been keeping up with the channel and who saw my March check-in, you know that March was an incredibly difficult month for me. I went through a lot, depression was back with a vengeance, I had fallen behind on a whole bunch of different tasks, I was struggling. And so April was an incredibly busy month for me. It was the month where I basically had to put my life back together out of the shambles that it had become throughout the month of March. And I had to do all of that while also studying for and writing exams. And what that meant for the month of April, and I suppose this is a good thing, is that makeup and beauty all went on the back burner. I wasn't watching a lot of beauty YouTube, and in fact, beauty YouTube is the #1 way in which I'm exposed to new things that I want to buy. I haven't been on my Instagram in ages, and even when I used to be on Instagram, I never really followed like Trend Mood or any companies on there or anything like that. My Instagram is very personal. It's actually privated, and I mostly use it for people I actually know, for my friends, my colleagues, people at my university, etc. And interestingly, once I cut off the stream of information about makeup and beauty, I found it just didn't occupy my time that much. Interestingly, I wore a lot of makeup in the month of April because putting on makeup is a large part of kind of getting dressed, getting ready to take on the day for me. And so it was just really interesting to realize that it isn't engaging with and interacting with my own makeup that makes me feel the need to buy more. It's really watching YouTube videos where people are talking about makeup that I don't have. So I'm gonna use two examples that I think Louise Poston in particular talk about a lot that made me really want to buy them. She talks about the Tom Ford lipstick in Wild Ginger, which is a very vivid orangey red. Similarly, if you've been watching a lot of her videos over a year, she constantly talks about how there is a dearth of cool tone transition shades. And Hannah's constantly looking for cool tone transition shades because she loves cool tone eyeshadows and she doesn't like wearing a cool all over the lid with a warm in the crease. And this is nothing against her, I just want to make that super clear because I love her and would die for her. But some part of me listens to her talking about cool tone transition shades and Tom Ford Wild Ginger and then goes, I need that. The thing that gives her a lot of joy will give me a lot of joy. And therefore I must acquire said thing. And interestingly, it was this month of April where I wasn't really consuming any media at all. I was so intensely focused on trying to get all of my schoolwork done that I was super behind on everything, right? There are so many content creators on here who I love to watch, like Hannah, Zayn San, Mia's Virtual Vanity, Anya, Living in Chrysalis, Terrible Decisions, and I was just super behind on all of their videos because there was no time in between trying to edit what I needed to edit and put out, as well as doing all of the schoolwork that I needed to do to sit and watch these videos, no matter how much I wanted to. And in that break and in that gap, And in the realization that following that gap, I suddenly just wanted makeup a lot less than I thought I did, I had an epiphany about Wild Ginger by Tom Ford and Cool Tone eyeshadows. Hannah loves Wild Ginger by Tom Ford because it looks really, really good on her. I, on the other hand, look terrible in orange lipstick. And it's not for a lack of trying, because if you have even a slightly warm melanated skin tone in the US and you go to a makeup store, everyone constantly recommends peachy orangey lipsticks for you. But I actually have a warm olive undertone, and that green tinge to my skin clashes quite violently with orange. Which is to say that my skin takes even the smallest amount of orange in a lip product and amplifies it. So lipsticks that are reddish orange look just orange on my skin. They look incredibly bright, kind of like I'm an extra in a Nicki Minaj video from like 2011. Do you remember that era? Like super base with the really like vivid neon lips? Like that's kind of what I look like, and it's not really the look I go for. Getting the Wild Ginger lipstick that makes Hannah super happy and is super flattering on her doesn't work for me. And I feel like that's super obvious to anybody who's like not immersed in the world of beauty, but I hope somebody can relate with me on this. Even though logically I knew it made no sense at all for me to want or even try to own Wild Ginger by Tom Ford, the irrational emotional part of my brain just wanted it. And same thing with cool tone transition shades. I actually actively hate cool tone transition shades because my skin is not cool at all. And every single cool tone transition shade that I've ever tried to use makes me look like I died 4 days ago because my skin tone is really, really warm. And the purpose of a transition color for me is to transition whatever color it is I'm wearing on my lids, whether it's cool toned or warm toned, back into my own very warm toned skin. I'm bringing this up in this video because it was the month of April where I found that I had no time to think about other people's makeup preferences and only really time to focus on using my own makeup, that I began to sort of realize what my own personal makeup preferences are. The really weird thing is I'm not like this in other areas of my life. In other areas of my life, I'm very assertive about my own opinions. But in the realm of makeup, for some reason, I think I always need to bow down to other people's opinions. I always need to defer to other people's preferences. If I dislike something, but a lot of other people like it, there's clearly something wrong with me that I can't make this thing work. I invalidate my own experience of liking or disliking a thing in the realm of beauty. Spending a month where for the first 3 weeks I sequestered myself and used a bunch of makeup without actually watching any videos on makeup allowed me to sort of come to this realization. So now that I'm aware of it, I'm obviously going to go back to watching everybody's videos because hello, I love the content of everyone that I'm subscribed to, but I'm going back into it with a mindset now and an awareness that other people's feelings are not my own feelings. Other people's preferences, likes, dislikes, raves, and hates are not my own, and that's truly okay. I think before intellectually I sort of understood that that was okay. Now I actually feel like that's okay. A lot of life, I have come to realize, is the difference between intellectually knowing and believing something and actually knowing and believing something. I think that was pretty evident in my March check-in, and it's just flowed right on into April. Whew, my voice fully just gave out there. So I have made myself a tea and we are back in business. All right, moving on to some other things about April that were no-buy related. I finished my exams on, I think, April 23rd, and my body just kind of gave out. I slept for an entire day, like 20 plus hours, because I had been running on almost nothing in order to do my exams. And the really interesting thing is I thought that 1 day of sleep would be enough to tide me over, but I just came back from my aunt and uncle's house in Minnesota. I'll talk about that trip a lot more in my May check-in because the bulk of it was during May. But on the last day or two that I was there, I got sick. And that's what I'm still recovering from right now. And it wasn't like a tiny sick. It was like sick with a capital S. Like I had to go to a clinic yesterday and the lady at the clinic was like, yeah, you have a mild fever. And like, I don't understand what you're doing even like up and about, because I was actually like trying to go to my summer classes. And she was like, you need to just go home and sleep and get better. I think my age really hit me for the first time. Which is not to say that I'm like a gajillion years old or whatever, and actually I have a really big problem with discourse that demonizes aging because let me tell you something. You could not pay me enough money to go back in time to being 20 again. Younger me didn't know anything about life, like at all. I think it's really fascinating because when we're young, like really young, like 10, 11, 12, we can't wait to grow older. And then once we hit like our 20s, all of a sudden everyone is like, pump your brakes, I don't want to grow older anymore. And I kind of had that phase, and now I'm over that phase. Like, I'm excited to grow older because I recognize now that the older I get, the wiser I become, the more experience I accrue, the more powerful, in a sense, I really become, because I know myself better with each passing year. And I know how to handle the, not to be pretentious, but the vicissitudes of life much better with every year that passes. So I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm old and that's terrible, but I mean to say that in previous years, I've been able to pull a whole bunch of all-nighters and be really stressed out and, you know, sleep a total of like 20 hours over a 5-day period. And I've just kind of been able to bounce back from that after sleeping for like 1 day. And this year, even though I slept those 20 hours, I was not perfectly fine. I was exhausted for like days afterwards, and I felt sick because of the intense amount of stress that I had put it through in the weeks prior. And so that's kind of what I mean when I say I really felt my age, because I was like, oh, the way that I used to just bounce back from things when I was like 20, like I can't do that at 25 anymore. 4 stressful days of little to no sleep, I'm not gonna bounce back from that in a day the way that I used to. It's gonna mess my body up for a while. Moving beyond that though, in the context of my makeup no-buy, one really interesting thing that happened in April was that although in the previous weeks of April, I just had no time to think about buying makeup and beauty, when I finished my exams, the urge to buy a piece of makeup was so strong. And that's because one of the ways in which I often used makeup was to reward myself. I mentioned this particular voice briefly in my February check-in. That voice came back with a vengeance. The voice that goes, Prachi, you've worked so hard. You've put in so much time, so much energy, so much effort. You got through all of your exams after the hell that was the month of March. You overcame your depression. You went to all of your doctor's appointments. You did so well. You did all of that. You successfully wrote your French syntax exam. You gave your big research presentation. You wrote your law exam. You've done so many incredible good things this month. You deserve to treat yourself. You deserve a reward, and that reward is makeup. You should be able to buy whatever you want because you earned it. You deserve it. And that voice was so difficult to shut down in the week following my exam because it had been a hard month, and our brains are wired to reward ourselves. My brain in particular, because I have ADHD, and so doing things without a sense of what the reward is really, really difficult for me. I really wanted to buy either Telluride by Bobbi Brown or that Pat McGrath mini trio of her lip glosses in the warm tones. Had it not been my no-buy year, either of those two things, or maybe even both of them, are probably what I would have gotten myself as a reward for having gotten through exams and just this generally very stressful period in my life. Let me tell you what I decided to do as a reward for myself instead. I allowed myself to go to Sephora. I haven't let myself set foot in there for quite a long time, and honestly I've been so depressed, and when I'm depressed it's so difficult to get me to leave the house that like who has the time to even go to Sephora? But I let myself go into Sephora, and I had this list of things that I really wanted to try, like those Hourglass scattered lights and the Pat McGrath lip glosses and a whole bunch of other things like that. And I told myself, you're going to spend 30 minutes in the Sephora just trying out all of this stuff that's like on your list of things to buy. And so I did that. I gave myself 30 minutes of time to sort of play with all of the new, fun, cool makeup that I wanted to play with. But I noticed that they'd gotten new rewards in. And 2 of those things are things that have been on my wish list for like months and months now. And so I saw them and I was like, ooh, I really want that. But I didn't let myself pick them up. Not then. Because I had just finished my exams. And if I allowed myself to pick up those 2 pieces of makeup immediately after I finished my exams, I would have been doing myself a disservice. Because although I absolutely wouldn't have broken any of my no-buy rules, what I would have done is reinforce the connection inside my brain of you did something, you want a reward, and that reward is physically acquiring new pieces of makeup. So I didn't let myself get it that day. And in fact, after I went to the Sephora for 30 minutes and then walked out without any new thing in my bag, I transitioned into the second part of my reward. I was going to go to a Starbucks. Starbucks is so expensive, guys. It's exorbitant. I like almost never go there. But the caramel macchiato at Starbucks is like one of my favorite drinks of all time. And because I get it with either lactose-free milk or almond milk, it's actually more expensive. The end result of that is that I let myself have maybe like one every like 2 months because I feel really uncomfortable spending like $5 to $6 on a coffee more frequently than that. And so the second part of my reward post-exams was I told myself that I would go to a Starbucks, I would get myself a medium caramel macchiato with almond milk, and I would let myself sit in that Starbucks for a full hour just drinking that drink and reading. For that full hour, guilt-free, I would not have to check my phone, check my emails, do anything vaguely resembling a responsibility. For one full hour, it was just gonna be me, my caramel macchiato with almond milk, and whatever on earth book I wanted to read. That's something that I haven't let myself do for a really long time because I've been so stressed because of exams and because throughout the month of March I fell through on so many obligations that I was trying to catch up on that all of April up until that point had been like go, go, go for me. And that 1 hour I spent with a drink I really like, just reading a book, honestly one of the best rewards of my life. And it's changed my entire mindset for how I want to reward myself. Before, I was always rewarding myself with things. Now I want to reward myself with time. Because that, to me, is infinitely more valuable than whatever thing I have acquired. Giving myself the time and the space to do whatever I want, guilt-free. Whether that means spending an hour just like binge watching a bunch of Run BTS episodes that I'm like behind on, or whether that means reading with my phone on Do Not Disturb so that I don't pick up even one notification of a text or a WhatsApp message or an email. That was more satisfying than pretty much any makeup I have ever bought in my life. I don't know what that says about me and my lifestyle, but it's true. Over the next 2 days, I did mull over those 100-point perks that I had initially wanted at Sephora to see whether I still really wanted them or whether it was one of those things where it was just exams were done and I wanted to reward myself with new makeup in some way, shape, or form. And giving it about 2 days of thought and going back to my wish lists and really consulting them carefully and making sure that these were things that were already on there that I had wanted for a very, very long time, I did make the decision to go back to Sephora and pick up these 2 100-point perks. So these are 2 pieces of makeup that have entered my life in the month of April, along with, of course, all of that beautiful makeup that my sister gave back to me that I talked about in a video that I'll link up in the cards up above. So this is the Bobbi Brown Crushed Liquid Lip. I think the color is Smoothie Mauve. My eye actually gravitated towards this exact color when it first came out, so I'm excited to kind of try this mini version and see if it lives up to the hype. And then the second thing is this Fresh Sugar lip balm in the color Rosé. My friend Catherine and I have like a long running desire for this lip balm. Like we're constantly joking with each other that one day when we're like super rich, this and that Bobbi Brown lip balm are gonna be like the bougie lip balms that we buy for ourselves. So getting the mini size of this for free, aka by redeeming my Sephora points, was pretty cool. And I guess I'll be able to actually evaluate if this is the thing that I want to be putting on my lips when I become bougie and need an expensive lip balm. Anyway, my voice is given out for the 4th time now, and I'm pretty much all out of tea. So I guess I will wrap up the video here. I hope you enjoyed watching my April check-in and epiphanies. I have been super behind on comments because I've been low-key, high-key bedridden, but hopefully by the time this video comes out, I should be all caught up. As always, I hope you have a great upcoming week. And even if your upcoming week ends up becoming messy and imperfect, I hope that you're still able to create and experience some truly beautiful moments. Bye! But you gotta be there for me too.